Welcome back, everybody, to the show, and I am happy to be back with all of you. We're going to have a wonderful show today because we are going to be talking about something that most physicians are not aware of, but it is important for us to learn about because it's actually part of what we do and we can get money back from the government. And this has to do with the program SR&ED, SR&ED. And we will talk about that with two very knowledgeable consultants who will talk to us about this government program. And the reason why this program is important is because it addresses a lot of the things that we do in research and medical publication. And this will affect a lot of academic physicians and also maybe some of those of us who are not so academic, so I will call it a small a, but do also research. So it's important for us to know how we can get some money back from the government. So without further ado, I will launch the podcast and you will learn about SR&ED and you will get acquainted with two lovely ladies called Jennifer and Jennifer.
How's my financial health, Doc? Welcome to the Financial Literacy Podcast for healthcare professionals, where financial security and wealth topics are not a taboo.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and I am back. I'm Wu Tran, your host for How is My Financial Health Doc podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about something that I never knew about, and this was a pleasure to actually learn about this from two experts. So I'm gonna call them J and J. Now, not Johnson and Johnson. No, it's Jennifer and Jennifer. So I'm going to ask Jennifer one. So Jennifer Martin and then Jennifer Edie. So Jennifer Martin, how about you introduce yourself first and then I'll ask Jennifer Edie to do afterwards.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for having us today. I am an SR&ED, a SR&ED account executive. And I like to say that I like to shred the news about the program to the medical community. Jennifer Edie.
Hi, good morning. Nice to meet you all. So much like Jennifer Martin, or the Jennifers that many people like to call us, I've been in the SR&ED space for just over 14 years now. And it's a passion of mine to educate the medical community on what it is and make sure that they know exactly how they could potentially qualify for it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So at this point, the audience is probably asking, Vu, what are you talking about? Why is this even relevant to me? I thought this was a financial podcast teaching me how to make more money or save more money. Well, there it is. We're going to teach you how to save money here. So what is SR&ED? SR&ED is scientific research and experimental development. That's what SR&ED stands for. And
Correct.
What are we talking about? We're going to elaborate on this right now. So I have come to know about SR&ED because of my former life. And the audience may not know or may know, I used to work for pharma. Yes, I said it. I used to work for pharma. I came from the dark side. Luke, I'm your father, right? That type of thing. So I no longer work for pharma, but if anybody is listening and you're part of pharma, just give me a call because I would love to work for pharma again. And so when you work with pharma, obviously they do a lot of R&D and they spend a lot of money on research and development. And some of that they claim back from the government as tax credit. So it lowers their taxable bill, right? So I understand what SR&ED was in that context in the big organizations and research development companies. But when J&J, Jennifer's here, told me, hey, you can do the same for individual physicians. I'm like, but I don't do research as a big organization. What are you talking about? And you opened my eyes. So Jennifer's, what are we talking about, in fact, here?
We are talking about a wonderfully generous program that has been around for almost 40 years. And SR&ED was one of the first to realize how medical doctors in a specialty field are able to participate in this program. And it really is an incentive program, and it is not so much tax credit program, which is a little bit misleading. But when the individual doctors who qualify for the program are able to participate in this, this Canadian program, they're actually able to get cash refunds. And the crux of the program is that Canadian corporations are advancing their knowledge in science, medicine, or technology. And if you are a physician practicing in a specialty field, you are oftentimes advancing your knowledge in medicine. And so there is this wonderful opportunity to reward the doctors for the good work they have done with regards to advancing their knowledge. Each and every year, they are able to prove eligibility in the program.
Okay, great. So you've corrected me, and which is perfect because I thought it was a tax credit, but you're saying, no, 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 it's better than that. You're actually getting money back. So you're doing your research and you get money to do your research because of the protected time and stipend, but you also can get money back from the government for the good things that you do. So that's great. So this is like Rakuten, really, right? So you purchase things and you get money back. So this is the Rakuten of the science community. So absolutely amazing. The other thing I wanted to ask is you said practicing in specialties. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a family doctor. Am I left behind? Does this apply to family doctors who also do research, or is it only for specialty?
You
Jen?
certainly can, yeah, you can certainly qualify as a family doctor. Same thing as, say, an emergency doctor. They may not be in a field of specialty per se. They're not always an ologist, as Jennifer and I would like to say. So a cardiologist or a neurologist, for example. However, many people can still qualify, including even those who are in dentistry, for example, or naturopathic medicine. Even clinics like chiropractors can qualify, even though they're not necessarily always in an area of specialty. The program itself is called Scientific Research and Experimental Development. If you're doing scientific research, you can always qualify.
Wonderful. I was about to say dentist because I know of a dentist who is doing SR&ED as well, applications for his dental practice. You know, emergency docs, we call them emergencyologist. So hey, that's your specialty there.
There you go.
Family medicine is family medicinologist. Okay, let's
Yes.
put it that way. Okay. So we've talked about the name. We talked about who can qualify. Or actually, just a little bit about that. So, what is in fact this program? Can you describe it to us? What this program is about?
So sure, you kind of touched on it a little bit before, where many medical professionals work for institutions, whether it's a hospital, whether affiliated with a university and teaching somewhere. Oftentimes they are working at an institution, so they automatically think, I don't qualify for this program. So two things. One, in order to qualify, you do not need to publish your research. It does not need to be formal research in order to qualify. Informal research can qualify as well. Second, if you work for an institution, VU, as you mentioned before, they may be paid through a stipend. They might get, a regular salary for this institution. But believe it or not, many medical professionals are spending additional time, whether it's in the evenings or on the weekends or in their spare time, if they have any, doing research. Sometimes this is completely self-led. Other times it's just in an interest area and they want to learn more. Sometimes they're doing, chart reviews and peer reviews and data analysis, and all of those types of activities can qualify. So it's not just that formal published research done in a lab per se that actually qualifies. It's much broader than that.
Okay, so that really opened up my mind a little bit. I thought it had to be published. So the answer is no, it doesn't have to be published, but it has to be a research, and it could be all types of research. It could be chart review, observational, prospective, randomized control trial, all that. But you did say something to me when we started talking about it, that it has to be on a topic that nobody knows about, or it has to be on a topic that has not been researched, or it has to be on a topic that doesn't have any literature to support at this current moment. Look, for example, if I were doing a chart review and I'm looking at all my patients with A1C and how that affects cardiovascular disease, well, we already know that. So even if I did research on that, it wouldn't qualify for SR&ED. So can you elaborate a little bit about what it means to be new, what it means to be, unpublished or not known in the literature? And now with, Dr. Google, I can Google everything. So what does it have to do to meet criteria, at least at the basic level, to say this qualifies?
Yeah, I think the main thing there and the main point is that the information cannot be available in the public domain at the time you did the research. So I always say, if you were to Google your hypothesis of whatever it is that you're trying to research or solve, if it already exists and there's already a paper about it, or there's information in the public domain that's correct, it's simply something that wouldn't qualify. If the information does exist, but it's proprietary to someone because maybe it's their trade secret, it's not available in the public domain, and therefore your research would be valid even if you didn't publish it either. So the key thing is that the information cannot already exist. By no means do you need to reinvent the wheel or have some major scientific or medical breakthrough, but it certainly, you can build on what's already known out there. You might be able to do some research on a different subset of patients. You might be looking at a particular, age group or gender or some particular ailment that's come up. As obviously with the COVID pandemic, there's been a lot of research that has stemmed from that. So all sorts of new things that could come up and variations on how to do so.
Okay, I got it. So I'll give a really ridiculous example here. So if I'm doing research on, or I'm doing a chart review or whatever on looking at, oral contraceptive and preventing pregnancy in men, right? So that would be something new. I don't know.
Yes,
I
it
don't
would
know.
be.
I don't know if that would be in the public domain. So I guess it's something like that. It doesn't have to be a new product. It doesn't have to be a new idea, but it's just in a new category of population, or new things that have never been studied before, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, correct. So let's all get working on that birth control pill in men. Okay, so now the next question is, how is this relevant to the individual physician? And I think we talked a little bit about that, but can you also elaborate a little bit more and maybe just get some idea of, now someone's listening to this podcast right now and say, Vu, I do some research, but what does it mean? Like, why does this even apply to me? So can we elaborate a little bit on that?
When I try and think of a way of explaining the SR&ED program, I liken it to unemployment insurance. If you are aware of the program, you meet eligibility criteria, and you apply, you're entitled to this money. So if we were then to apply this particular scenario to the medical community, if you are a physician who has eligible work through your medicine professional corporation, your MPC, you could apply and receive the benefits, which is the cash refund of this program, in that very same way.
Yeah, I think the main thing, everybody who's listening, who's never thought about this program for themselves individually before, there's a couple of things to consider. The area of qualification and do I qualify and how do I know? It's certainly a gray one. It's not easy to know whether or not you qualify. However, there are two major things that you need to do in order to qualify for this program. The first is that you must be incorporated. So whether you're in Ontario and have, you know, a medicine professional corp, or in another province, you know, and you've got a corporation specifically, regardless of what it's called, that is a key to being eligible for the program. And the second is that you must pay yourself a wage through your medicine professional corporation or your corporation in order to qualify. The reason for that, it quantifies the time that you are spending on eligible work. And this program is federal and provincial. So it does literally cover coast to coast people in every single province.
Wonderful. That was important. So one, physicians or medical practitioners, and it could be nurse practitioners, I'm assuming here,
Yep.
has to be incorporated professionally using the professional corporation.
Yes.
And two, they need to take a T4 salary.
Correct.
So now you've just given me another bullet here on why physicians who are incorporated should take a T4 and not just dividend only.
That's correct.
You should take, if you want to take dividends, then at least do a blend. And so all of you listeners out there in the airwaves there, here's another reason why your accountant needs to switch you to a T4. Okay, so now that sets the basis of why this could happen. But give me an example. So for example, Dr. Smith, and it's just regular Dr. Smith, okay, who is a well-known neurosurgeon at this top-tier hospital, and he's already doing research with this top-tier hospital, and he's getting protected time and stipend, or he's getting some sort of salary from the university to conduct this research. So how can he also get another SR&ED credit through his MPC? So can you explain that a little bit?
For sure. So the first thing that we do is a full analysis to see whether or not someone is eligible for this program. So just because they're incorporated and have a salary does not necessarily mean they qualify. We need to look at their institutional contracts with the hospital or the university or whoever they may be affiliated with. Secondly, we have to look at how they get paid. How do they receive money into their corporation? Usually there are multiple sources. The third, what other funding are they receiving? So sometimes medical professionals are getting, some grants, which is the most common thing we run into, whether it's from a pharma company, whether it's from, an association or a society of some sort for their research. And then last, we figure out what percentage of their time do they truly spend on research? And I don't, again, mean this in lab research, it's just on general research. So let's give a numerical example, for Dr. Smith. Let's say he's paying himself $200,000 on T4. Maybe he has dividends, doesn't really matter. Unfortunately, dividends are not eligible for this program. So let's assume that 30% of his time is dedicated to research. We have many individuals who spend less time than that, many individuals who spend significantly more time than that. I would say the average medical professional that we work with spends between about 20 and 40% of their time on research. Again, we've got some who spend 90 and some who spend 10, so it really doesn't matter. But let's assume, again, Dr. Smith does 30% of his time with dedicated to research. With this program, this would yield in one fiscal year just shy of a $40,000 refund. So this is an actual refund check from the CRA. That might date me a little. Now it's direct deposit, but an actual refund from the CRA. The only time it's not refundable is if there is any debt through the corporation already owing to CRA. They'll obviously take their portion first and then refund you anything that's left over.
Okay, so I just want to dive a little bit deeper in this and clarify. So Dr. Smith, you said, gets money through the corporation and he takes a T4 of 200,000. You said he does 30% of that time is in research, but he's already being paid by the university to do that. So out of that 30%, he's already being paid by the university. So how do we calculate, or how do we tease out what portion of that 30% is not being paid by the university? And he does this sitting on his throne in the toilet. He's doing this while driving. He's doing this while seeing a patient. Like, how do we tease out the part of the 30% that is not being paid by the university? And in your example, let's just say the overall is 30%, but his his time that he spends beyond the university is 10%. So does he get the cash refund for the 40%, the 30%, or the 10%?
Good question. So the first thing, again, that we would have to do is look at their institutional contract to see if they are mandated to do research and what percentage. The second is the research that they're doing through their hospital. Is that the same research that we're potentially claiming for SR&ED? Sometimes it's completely different. Sometimes 100% of the work that they're doing with their institution is covered by some sort of contract or agreement through the institution, and then we're claiming additional time that they might be spending on research outside of that. But if it is common research, the most important thing we need to figure out is, are they going above and beyond? Like you said, are they now doing 40% research because there's 10% of their own time and 30%, required by their institution? Is it for the same thing? Are we claiming the same project? What we need to know is, do we have to back out the salary or the money that they're receiving from an institution related to this research? So again, this is part of our financial analysis to figure out all of the ways that these medical professionals get paid, what type of research we're going to claim for the program, and is there a commonality between the two? The most important thing, and probably the reason to work with a professional, is to ensure that A, you meet policy, but B, you don't double dip. You can't work the same hour twice. You can't get paid for the same hour twice. Therefore, that is probably the magic sauce in what we do, is figuring out the calculation of what percentage of time can we claim that is not already being paid for by institutional or hospital time. So in this situation, the answer would be, it would depend. We would have to look at the contract. We'd have to see, are they receiving a full T4 for overall work? Is this T4 just directly related to their research? A lot of the times it covers other clinical time, other academic, reservations and things like that as well. So the quick answer is it would depend, and it would require a lot more analysis to figure it out. But worst case scenario, we would simply back out any institutional money that they were receiving directly related to the research projects, and we'd be able to claim what was left over.
Thank you. That does clarify. I mean, the sentence that really clarified for me is you can't double dip. And so there's quite a bit of analysis here done by yourself and your team to figure out that portion.
Correct.
So that's important. And me, by just listening to you, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I need an expert like yourself to do the analysis, and your team does that.
Yes.
We do, yeah. And I think one of the biggest challenges right now that Jennifer and I face is just the general misconception about the SR&ED program and the medical community. There's a lot of really great consultants out there, whether they're in the accounting space or just in kind of that financial planning space or whatever it might be, that don't necessarily realize that the SR&ED program can apply to the medical community. If you were to look up the list of eligible categories for medical professionals alone, it's huge. It would fill up an entire page. But oftentimes, I think people don't realize that medical professionals qualify. So there's a lot of unfortunate or advice being, had out there. Doctors are often told, you're not eligible, you're not doing technology, you're not a manufacturing company, so you simply don't qualify. So that's one of the things that Jennifer and I are just really striving to do out there, is just educate this community to help them understand. And I mean, gosh, medical professionals spend so much time unpaid on their research. Like you said, it's, in the evenings when they're driving on a family vacation, having dinner and talking about it with their spouse or their kids. And all of this time is unpaid by anybody, but yet it's advancing medicine for us.
And we're really passionate about the medical community in particular after the pandemic has hit. And we, again, spend a lot of time educating the doctors about this program. I have had conversations with physicians who are telling me, no, Jennifer, this cannot be a thing, because if this was a thing, my colleagues and I would have known about it. And they are missing out on this. And remember, the SR&ED program is not a grant. You may be able to participate every year in the program getting the refunds if you are doing eligible work.
Like I mentioned, I was aware of this because I was working for a pharma company, which is a big organization doing R&D. So I knew it from that aspect. I did not know it from what you're talking about, which is the perspective of the individual physician. So I'm very glad that we did this today because, to be honest, you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know that you could have done this, then you're leaving a lot of money on the table. That really, that last sentence, you don't know what you don't know and you're leaving a lot of money on the table, is the story of every single physician I know. Right? Because we're not trained in finance and we don't know about all the different things that exist out there because we are so dedicated to our craft and our work and our patients. And so it is not surprising to me that physicians leave a lot of money on the table. And the other thing that I also want to talk about, which is a good segue, Jennifer, is you talked about, different consultants and stuff like that and accountants and there's a misconception out there, right, that we can't do this. So this is a good segue because I was about to ask you, who are the expert in the industry that does exactly what you do? And I mean not just SR&ED, but SR&ED for individuals and individual MPCs, not big corporations. So who are the experts in the industry? Are you alone in this? Or are you one team in the entire universe that does this? Or are there other people that does this? And how do people even know about you guys?
Jen, well, we are a fabulous team and we are in the universe. Jen, how about you take this one?
Yeah, I think in general, the SR&ED program, like Jennifer said, has been around since the 80s. It is not a new program. Being an entitlement program is great. You're not competing against others when you're applying, has really opened the eyes to many in the medical space. And most importantly, it has, I think made consultants and sometimes accountants aware that there is an opportunity for the medical community. There's obviously a lot of providers out there who specialize in SR&ED tax credits. However, I would personally say there's really only a handful who truly understand what it takes to help understand how a medical professional can qualify for the program. So not only do they have to be policy experts, they also have to fully understand that financial side of things, because even Vu, like you said, giving your example, that can be a very complicated way that medical professionals are paid, but also their research obligations at a particular institution. So I do personally think it's really important to speak to someone who has expertise specifically with the medical community and not just a generalist, because it is very different. It is that SR side of the SR&ED program, and I can assure you it is very different. And like Jennifer said, I mean, we're putting on educational webinars all the time and sessions, for hospitals and universities and anybody, who will listen to us. So, certainly the Jennifers have tried our best to make some evidence out there in the market.
First of all, I want to say that this is a privilege for me to have both of you on my show and talk about this, because this is not something that, most of us are aware of. So this is a privilege for us. And as beautiful as it is, I want to keep this just for myself and keep it a secret, but it's too late now. It's now all over the Aircast and podcast land. And so I did a horrible job at keeping this a secret. So thank you very much for being on the show and telling us about this.
Thanks for having us.
I want to come back to the criteria. So you've named a few criteria of who would qualify. Are there more that we should know about? And if there are, we'll just go through them very quickly. And if not, we'll move on to the next question.
Yeah, again, just to kind of recap, the most important things are really that you have to be incorporated. You have to pay yourself a T4 or a wages payable through your corporation. And lastly, you have to qualify for the policy. So things like hospital improvement projects or social sciences, Those are not part of the program. While they are very obviously important research, it's just not an eligible category. And lastly, just seek out a professional assessment. I think that's the most important thing is you don't want to do this program on your own. It's not easy. And Vu, like you said, medical professionals don't have the time or the bandwidth to be able to, put this on their hard drive and compute it. So, they lean to professionals to help them navigate it.
For sure, for sure. And my hard drive is currently occupied by me mining Bitcoin, so I don't have bandwidth on my hard drive to do this. It sounds great, it's beautiful, but is it worth my time? Like, if I'm going to do this, why am I spending money, time, effort, sweat to do this? So what does it look like? You mentioned earlier, you gave an example, potentially 40,000 coming back as a cash refund or a deposit. I love deposits into my bank account. It doesn't make much noise, but I can definitely scream when I see it. So what has been, in your experience working with different physicians, your how do I say it? The amounts that people have been getting. So what has been that type of, what has been the average or maybe the spectrum?
So, Jen, maybe we can talk about two things with regards to time. The time it takes to work with the team to getting the actual refund, and the timeline with regards to CRA as well and that refund.
Vu, to answer your question in terms of like what do the refunds look like in the averages, truly it depends on what the medical professional is paying themselves. That will yield how much time that we can claim for them, and also what that relates to in terms of dollars. And like Jennifer alluded to, the most important thing is a medical professional's time. If I'm going to spend time to get a $40,000 refund, how much time do I need to spend? The way that we work is as efficient as possible. Our team is very well trained in understanding that meetings might get set up and then rescheduled. A medical professional might need to leave mid-meeting because they're on call and now got called in. Like, we're very flexible. I would say overall, the process would take a couple of hours from a medical professional's time. More if they're not very organized. However, I would say maximum 2 hours. That would include all of the meetings that we would require to understand that the work that they do. We would work directly with their accountant on the financial side of things, and also approving the work once we're ready to submit it. So I would say about 1 to 2 hours of time, which I think is a pretty decent outcome in terms of yielding a refund of that size type of thing.
It seems as if Dr. Smith is going to get $40,000 back from his SR&ED claim after working with us, and it took about two hours.
Obviously, I don't want to do 2 hours of work and get $5,000 back. And so what would you say has been your average, or maybe not average, but some examples of you've seen when working with physicians? Can you just name a few?
Oh, you mean
amounts?
dollar? Yeah, so an average claim could be anywhere from $25,000 and or above. It really does depend on there's two ways to get a larger SR&ED claim. It's the amount of research that you're doing or your salary. So sometimes successful physicians have come back to us, who have been successful physicians who have gotten wonderful SR&ED claims, have come back to us and said, okay, Jennifer, how do we get more money? How do I get more from the SR&ED program? Well, number one, you could increase the amount of research that you're doing, or you could pay yourself more money. And that's how you can increase your refund from the CRA.
Typically, the question is, how long is this going to take and how quickly can I get money in my bank account? With the CRA, we've seen, claims get approved relatively quickly within a couple of weeks of submitting them. But I would say on average, it's typically 3 to 5 weeks before someone's going to hear anything. That being said, the standards with CRA do change from time to time, and June is their busiest time because anyone with a December year end must submit their claims by June 30th. Therefore, anything around June and slightly after June is very busy, and processing times are going to slow down.
if it takes about, 1 to 2 hours of my time to get this application going, working with your team, doing the analysis, and we talked about 25,000 to 40,000 depending, and everybody's different. I recognize that. So if I'm taking that as an example, 25,000, then that's 12.5 thousand per hour. Now, I have not met any physician job that pays that. Family doctors get paid $1 an hour, right? You guys know that.
Wow.
And specialists get paid a lot more, but 12.5 thousand per hour, that's a pretty good return. That's something that obviously, if you are doing research, then it's important to look at what else can you get and what are you leaving on the table, and hopefully people are considering that. Okay, so it's nice to get money back, but how much do I have to pay for it? Now, I'm not asking this because I don't want to pay. As long as I see value, right? And again, people are always hung up on cost. It's not cost that's the important thing, it's the value. We've all been teenagers, right? I guess, Jennifer, you've been teenagers
Yes,
before.
yes, yes.
Many
And
moons ago.
many, many moons ago, and when I was back in Montreal as a teenager, my dream was to go into a nightclub, right? And you go into the nightclub, and the women goes into the nightclub for free, and the men have to go in and have to pay a cover charge, right? I'm like, well, that's not fair. Why do men have to pay for cover charge and women goes to the nightclub for free? But guess what? We all paid it, right? We all paid the cover charge to go into the nightclub because there was value in going into the nightclub. And so we have to talk about value and not cost. That being said, people want to know how much is this going to cost me, because they want to know. And so how is that calculated?
Well, this is actually the best part, and this is why we love to shred the news so much. It's contingency based. Jen, jump in there too and explain how working with us or payment works.
Yeah, so I think that's a big thing on everybody's mind is how much is this going to cost me? What if I'm not eligible? All sorts of things, right? So certainly the assessment side of things to really dig into what exactly you're doing, how your corporation is set up, what type of research you're doing. That assessment side of things doesn't cost anything. It's truly a conversation to figure out, and we'll be very honest at the end of the day as to whether or not you qualify for the program. And the neat thing is too, it is a retroactive program. I'm not even sure we mentioned that, but it is a retroactive program. So you can actually go back 18 months from your last fiscal year end as well. And then when it comes to the fees, like Jennifer said, it's contingency fee based. So we're taking on that financial risk up front to say, like, yes, we believe you're eligible. We believe you meet that policy criteria and that you've got eligible expenses. And so if for some particular reason a case is not approved, then a client wouldn't pay anything. So there's no financial risk to the client by doing this other than a little bit of their time.
And so let's just say we move forward and I get my 25,000 in that example. How much of that 25,000 goes to your team in final cost?
Great question. So typically the, I guess, industry standard, I've been in this space for a long time. It's been over 14 years. Prices were a lot higher back then, 25 to 30% contingency fee. However, we're seeing right now the industry standard is about 20%. And for us, it's typically between 18 and 20% in terms of the actual fee that someone would pay to us.
Okay, I think that's fair. It's actually, well, it's no risk. I don't pay anything up front. And if I get the credit, well, not the credit, if I get the refund back, then I pay you 20% or 18 in your case, 18 to 20%. It's not as bad as the lawyers, right? The lawyers charge 30, 40%. So I think this is it's a fair deal, and it's definitely worth looking into. So I think we're coming at the end of our conversation, and this has been amazing. It's been an eye-opener for me, and hopefully for a lot of my audience, it's a eye-opener. Someone who's listening to this podcast say, Vu, you've talked about everything, but how do I connect with Jennifers? What do I do? Like, where do I find the Jennifers? There's probably a million Jennifers in this world. How do I even get in contact with them?
Well, I think there might be 2 million Jennifers in the world. A couple of things. By the way, I am absolutely all right if you wish to give out my email address to anybody who reaches out to you, Vu, at any point in time. and or someone can contact me at 437-353-3277. And I am happy to take that call and shred the news and get them started on the path.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So I always ask my guest this question at the end of our conversation. So this has been amazing. As I said, it's been a privilege. If you were to leave my audience with one final thought that needs to be said, it's burning, you need to get it off your chest, what would that be? So I'll start with Jennifer Martin, and then I'll ask Jennifer-ED.
I would like to say thank you, by the way, back to you, Vu, for this wonderful opportunity. But to those physicians who are listening to this, you are entitled to this money and you deserve it. It is an entitlement program for the good work that you have done. And I so ask and hope that you learn and take the time to get this money back because of all the good work and contributions you have done for your clients, your patients, and Canadians.
Thank you. Jennifer-ED?
Similar to that, but truly just invest in yourself. So take a little bit of time. I know that their time is of essence, and we appreciate everything that you do and all the time that you spend on advancing medicine, certainly, but invest in yourself. You deserve it. You're spending your time dedicated to research, looking at charts in the middle of the night, trying to figure out what's wrong with somebody or how you can make it better. And just spend a little bit of time to invest in yourself. And like Jennifer said, it's an entitlement program. You're entitled to your piece of the pie if you're doing eligible work. So, and again, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll leave with this wonderful message: invest in yourself. We invest in a lot of things, sometimes not for the best, like we invest in Lamborghinis and Ferraris. But in this particular case, invest in yourself. But I think learning about finance, learning about how to build financial security and wellness is the way and the path forward for preventing burnout. And so, but the first thing is, giving us permission to investing in ourselves. So thank you very much, Jennifer, for passing on that message.
Our pleasure today. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I definitely learned something new. Although I know about SR&ED in the bigger scheme of big corporations, I was not aware of SR&ED in the personal and professional individual side of things. And so I think this applies to many physicians, many of my colleagues, as we do a lot of research. And so don't forget, this is an entitlement program, and so therefore you may be entitled if you are doing eligible work. So please don't disregard that. As always, if you have any feedback or comment, please email me at hmfhd2020@gmail.com. I just realized by saying this that it has been 4 years, because HMFHD 2020 means that I started in 2020. So it has been a good 4-year journey. And I do appreciate your feedback and your comments. So please email me and let me know how you thought of this particular episode or any other episode. And if you have any suggestions or recommendations for future episodes, I would love to hear them. I also want to take this opportunity to let the audience know that I've also started a new venture, and that is coaching. So I do executive leadership coaching and personal coaching as well. So if you are either thinking of transition to a different position, changing position, transitioning already, or you are thinking of climbing up the corporate ladder or the hospital ladder and think that you need some skills or some coaching to help you move in that direction, please let me know. And we can speak about what coaching is and what coaching is not and how the program works. So I'm definitely leaving it out there should you need coaching sessions in your own professional or personal life.
How is My Financial Health, Doc? Podcast is hosted by Dr. Vukit Tran. Dr. Tran is a physician with a special interest in personal financial security and wealth education. Dr. Tran does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through this financial podcast. The information provided is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. Please confer with your advisor, lawyer, or accountant for specific advice.